The second reading today from St. Peter has kind of a famous phrase in there where St. Peter is exhorting us to always be ready to give an explanation of why it is that we have hope. Always be ready. Maybe some of you had that put to you when you were younger, learning about the faith, or maybe in a catechism class of some kind, RCIA. Always be ready to give an explanation of why it is that you have hope. Maybe sometimes I think we think of that as like making sure that when the Jehovah's Witness knock on our door, we're able to explain the things of the faith, where the papacy comes from, and all these other arguments and so forth. Those are important. Understanding our faith, certainly we talk about that all the time. It's important for us to know our faith, to know where our teachings come from and so forth. But I think what oftentimes people miss when they read that line from St. Peter is the second half of the sentence. St. Peter says, yes, be ready to give an explanation of your hope. But more interestingly, I think he says at the end of the sentence, when you are maligned, when you are hated for your answer. He's saying not if you are hated for your answer, or not if you are mistreated for what you give as an explanation of your hope. He's saying when it happens. He's saying, look, it will happen. So we have this very odd contradiction of, on one end, we have people talking about why they have hope, what it is that gives people joy and hope. And then on the other end of that, we have St. Peter saying, and when you do that, you will be hated. Such a strange contradiction. But yet I think we hear that message also in other places. Jesus says, if the world hates you, know that it hated me first. And so we have this guarantee going in that while we are talking about what makes us happy, what gives us joy and hope, when we give that answer, be prepared to be maligned, to be disliked, to be mistreated. What is it, first of all, that gives us our joy? I think the best thing, and certainly scriptural arguments and dogma and doctrine are important, but I think the thing that the most convincing way to talk to people about our hope is what Jesus says in today's gospel. He says, if you keep my commandments, you will be in my love. And so oftentimes when people ask me, and they can either ask directly or indirectly. People do not very often come up and say directly to you, why do you have hope? But they say that by watching you. They say that by looking at you or maybe asking questions indirectly, beating around the bush, so to speak. But people want to know why it is that we have hope. And they're going to ask or they're going to watch. And I think the thing that convinces the world is if we can say like what Jesus says today. People ask why it is that we have hope. And I think for me, that has always been, from early on in my life, the times where I have kept God's commandments, He has kept, it has been true. What He said would happen has happened. And I have found joy in that. I've certainly failed many times. And when I have failed, He has also, what He has said would happen has been true. I have found myself in misery or pain. But yet, miraculously, when I keep God's commandments, I feel as if it works. I'm in His love. And that is a great mystery. Even in the midst of suffering, that is the case for me. And so then when God talks about heaven, and God talks about tomorrow growing in His love, when He talks about that in the book of Revelation and in the Gospels, talking about a day where every tear will be wiped away, I believe Him. And that's why I have hope. Because every other time that I have kept His commandments and tried to do what He's asked, He has told the truth. And I believe that He's telling the truth about the future as well. That's why I have hope. And that is, I think, the thing that the world is looking for. But oddly enough, as St. Peter is preparing us for, even when you talk about that, even when you say that, either verbally or through the way that you live your life, the way that you act on a daily basis, the way that you carry yourself, the world will hate you for what you say. People, not the entire world, but some will always hate what you have to say. And so I think one thing that I started thinking about as I was reading these readings today, for today, is who hates me? Who hates me? If St. Peter is saying that people will hate you if you talk about why you have hope, or if you live in a way that expresses why you have hope, then people will hate you. So the thing to think about, and the thing that I would challenge you to think about as well, who hates you? Who maligns you? Who mistreats you because of the way that you talk about hope, the way that you live your life full of hope? Certainly, St. Peter is suggesting, I think, that if no one maligns us, if there is nobody that hates us, no one is mistreating us, one of those, if no one is doing that to us, then I think we have to ask ourselves, are we living that way? Are we living in a way that proposes a message to the world that why we have hope? Some people, I think, hear this from St. Peter and they do the wrong thing. They go out and pick a fight. They go out and challenge people with the message of Christ, the message of His church, looking for a fight. Well, if St. Peter says people are going to hate me, then I've got to get a big count. I've got to get my numbers up. I have to get more people to hate me. And that's why St. Peter says in that same sentence, it's all there laid out very beautifully. He says, do it with charity. Do it with love, so that when you are hated, it isn't your fault. St. Peter is telling us, I think, some of us, yes, we may be talking about why we have hope, but we're doing it in the wrong way. And so that when people hate us for that reason, then that's our fault. We have to be people, St. Peter is challenging us in that very beautiful sentence. Tell people and live with hope. Tell people why you have hope. Do it with charity, so that when people hate you, it isn't your fault. We have to ask ourselves, are we doing that? Are we following that game plan that St. Peter has laid out, that Jesus said would happen as well, that all the apostles lived out, all the great saints? To the extent that we are not, to the extent that we fail on a daily basis, we come and we're nourished by this sacrament, by the sacrament of reconciliation. And we continue to draw strength from the sacraments of the church, so that when we are hated, we may still continue on in charity.